Welcome to today's video. We've all learned that we should be fair, or at least we want things in life to be fair. But this video is about why it's not about fairness. Stay tuned. So what is fairness? Fairness is basically about things equally being given from one person to another, across the board, the same. That's one way you could describe it. But as we all know, life is not fair. No matter how much we want it to be fair, how we're taught to be fair, children say, oh, that's not fair. Or we may say, well, we're not getting equal pay. That's not fair. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some fairness in our lives. What I'm saying is we all know as a rule that life is not fair. We know of people that have been seemingly given much more than what they deserve, and then there's others who have been given so much less. Or there's people that, it just seems like misfortune always follows them, or just problems are always happening in their family. And we tend to also think that when something happens to us, we say, well, that's not fair. Or when we are misjudged, or when something happens to us. So why is it not about fairness? Well, fairness is basically our view of life. We're looking across the board at other people's lives, their situation, and comparing it to our situation. And when you start doing that, the comparing game, you're always going to think life is not fair. Now, it is true that things are not clear-cut and equal across the board, but it doesn't mean that it should be. See, the thing is we think it should be, but really it shouldn't be. Life and people are different, situations in life are different. There's so many things that come into, there's so many parts and facets of our lives and what's involved in our lives to make them the way they are. You can't compare other people's lives and say, well, that's not fair, this is not fair. Now, I'm not saying there's not some situations where there needs to be, like there's justice or things are not right and wrong. I'm not saying all that. What I'm saying in general is our outlook of what we consider fair and not fair. We tend to think of fair and not fair when something simply just doesn't go our way, when something bad happens. We'll say, like if we didn't get what we wanted, we'll say, well, that's not fair. Well, that has nothing really to do with fairness. That just has to do with life. None of us like it when things don't go our way or we don't get what we want, but that is a part of life. And it does seem sometimes when we look at other people that they have gotten more or they have gotten less, but that's why you should be thankful. Be thankful that you have what you have, because there are other people who don't, that would love to have your situation, even though you may think your situation at the time is not very good. So we need to not compare things. It's not about fairness in that sense. And the thing is, God gives talents and resources and puts us into situations in life that are not fair, that are not what we expect. So that's why I say it's not about fairness, because life is life. We need to look at it from a broader perspective. God does not look at things as fairness. He basically does what he thinks is best. He does what he thinks is right and what will cause us to grow in our life. So we need to stop comparing ourselves with others, because God gives gifts and talents according to as he thinks is best. And we have to remember that we are to be submitted to God. We might not understand everything he does, but it is for our good and it is for the good of his kingdom, which benefits all of us. We may not like everything that he does, we may not understand, but we need to accept that. Don't be jealous of another person. Don't think that they have been given everything when really you don't know their lives. You don't know what they've gone through. You don't know what they're struggling with at that moment. You don't know their past, the history of their family, their lives. Don't look at them and say, well, they've just been given everything, because they may think you have a better life than them. You don't know what they're thinking. They may think that it's not fair that they've had certain things in their life. It's always greener on the other side of the fence. Another thing that how we look at fairness wrong is that we think we deserve things. Everything that we've been given in life by God is a gift. There's nothing that we've been given that we deserve. And you may say, well, we have rights and we have all these things that are proper and good, right and wrong, and the things that we should have because of those principles. And that's true, but they are still given by God. We didn't choose to be born. We didn't choose the parents we have. We didn't choose the way we were raised. Those were given by God and given to us by our parents. We do have a choice about what direction that we go, but that was also given by God. We are rewarded by what we choose or judged by what we choose according to God's kingdom. Now that is our choice, but even that is influenced by outside forces. You will reap, if you work hard, you reap what you've sown, basically. If you're working hard, you will gain things. That's a principle of life. We just need to stop looking at it as we deserve it, instead of being thankful that we have it. Be thankful and not thinking that, I deserve this or I should have had this. Don't be jealous. Thinking you're privileged or you deserve things is always a path that goes down the wrong road. We need to be thankful. We need to be happy with what we've been given. And it doesn't mean we can't have more. It doesn't mean that we can't want more. But from where you are right now, be thankful and then move on from there. Don't think that everything is your right. Think from a position of thankfulness from what you've been given, because the very life that we have has been given from God and it can be taken away in an instant. Another reason why it seems like things are not fair in our lives is some people get more stuff based on relationships. Like if you have a stronger relationship with your children, you may give one more than the other just because they're closer to you. They may live closer to you. They may, the distance. Someone lives in the same state or someone lives in a different country. One of your children lives in a different country. It's going to be harder to give to them just because of distance. The principle is the closer you are to the relationship, whether by distance or just time you spend together, just the closeness you have, more will be given to you based on that relationship, whether that's time from that person, whether that's resources like money, whether that's just help in general, just advice. The closer you are is the more you will get. So when you think of some situations where they say, well, it's not fair, they've been given more than me, well, look at their relationship. Look at how are they closer to that person than you are? And if they are, you can change that. You can get closer to that person. It's like what's hindering the relationship. You got to look at that and then go on from there. Another thing about life not being fair is how God will give or even take away based on things in our life to help us, to change us, to make us better. God doesn't look at fairness. He looks at what His kingdom and how things are going to change in our lives. When things are taken away from us, we automatically think, well, God's against us, or things are falling apart, and that's not necessarily what that means. Many times God is trying to show you something. When we get sick or things happen to us that we don't expect, look at what God is trying to show you. Look at the situation and say, can I learn from this? God may not specifically be trying to show you anything. I'm not saying that God's just causing things. Just what I'm saying is there's more than just the situation at hand. When someone dies, we say, well, that's, someone dies unexpectedly. That's a tragedy, and it is a tragedy. But what I'm saying, sometimes there's a timing to it. There's a thing in our life. There's a season where someone has to leave for you to grow or to move on. We don't want to accept that. We don't like that. But sometimes the relationships have to change for us to grow or to move on to the next season God has for us. Many of those things we don't understand, we don't want to accept because we just see the immediate. Something bad has happened, something that we don't like has happened, either to us or to someone else. So we look automatically at that one thing, we focus on one thing. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't to some degree. It doesn't mean that doesn't have merit. What I'm saying, though, is we need to eventually look past that. We need to look past the initial thing and see, in other words, have greater vision about our lives. Don't look at this, the one thing. Expand our horizons. Look beyond the hurt. Look beyond what's going on to you and ask God, what are you trying to show me? Or ask God, is there something more I should see in this? Or maybe He's just wanting, maybe it's just something that has nothing to do with you in general at all. It's just something that has happened in life. It may be someone else's lesson or just the progression of life. What I'm saying is just try to look beyond the initial circumstance. Someone will give more to the relationship just because they're in more of a struggle. Like in a relationship with your family, your parents may give more of something just because more of a need. They may give more money, more financial help than they did the other siblings just because that sibling is in need at the moment. And if you're jealous of your other sibling, you say, well, they didn't help me when I was in that, in the same situation. Well, maybe they didn't and maybe they should have, but you also got to look at it don't look from the fairness standpoint again. Don't look at it from jealousy. People grow, people change. Perspective of how they look at things change in relationships. You can't say, well, they didn't do that then, why aren't they doing that now? Because we all change. We all look at things differently. We grow. So we may not act, or we may not choose the same thing we did before. But no matter what happens in your life, don't look at it as it's not fair. Look at it from a positive standpoint. Look at it from a learning standpoint and go on from there. Ask God and ask for help, ask for strength, ask for Him to show you what is going on in this situation. In other words, don't fall into jealousy, don't fall into comparing and bitterness and unforgiveness. Get rid of all that stuff. None of that stuff is going to help you. All it will do is destroy relationships. Do not go down that path. Go down the path of what is good and what is right, and seek the Lord and seek what is good, and discipline yourself in how to look for those things and to move on to a brighter future. So I hope this video has helped you, and until next time, God bless.